Hello, this is Abhijit Mukherjee. I'm going to teach you class 6 science chapter 3 separation of substances part 2. The process of sedimentation and decantation, as you have studied last time. We can apply this when we want to clean the market purchased pulses, which may contain some impurities like dirt, insects, tiny pieces of straw, some lighter impurities. If they are mixed with water in a bowl, these impurities will be dissolved in the water and they will be floating on the top, which can be slowly discarded off by pouring off. This is the supernatant liquid. Whereas the pulses which are heavier, they get cleaned and this get sedimented or settled down. These are called sediments, and then it can be used up. Insoluble solids and the soluble things actually able to dissolve in the liquid. These two things are separable. The solid substances that settle down are called sediments, and those soluble things which are mixing up in the liquid and floating on the top in a clear form is called a supernatant liquid. For example, a mixture of sand and water can be separated in the same process, sedimentation, decantation. We can observe also cleaning of rice by this sedimentation and decantation process, where the rice, which is mixed with water in a bowl and allowed to stand for some time without disturbing, the soluble impurities of the rice float as they mix up with the water, and this can be drained off, while the cleaner rice is settled down as a sediment, and this can be used. Filtration is the process by which two substances, an insoluble solid and a liquid, are separated by passing the mixture through a filtering device. Filtration is commonly used in our homes for preparing the tea. We filter the tea leaves using a strainer. Filtration is also done to remove the pulp from the fresh fruit juice. Water may also contain solid impurities, and that can be removed by the process of filtration. During filtration, the insoluble solid is retained in the filtering device, whereas the liquid that passes through it. It is important that the particles of the insoluble solid must be bigger than the holes of the filtering device for them to be retained in the device. A filter paper is also used as a filtering device which has very tiny pores. Aim. To separate a mixture of sand and water by filtration, we need the materials of the mixture of sand and water along with funnel, beaker, flask, and filter paper. The method is to fold the filter paper along the dotted lines to make a filter cone, as we can see in A, B, and C part. Keep this filter paper cone inside the funnel spread out. Place the funnel into the flask and then pour the mixture of the sand and water to be filtered into the flask through the funnel slowly. Observation would be that the sand is retained in the filter paper because it is bigger in size than the filter paper holes and cannot pass through it, but the water which can pass through the filter paper gets collected at the bottom as a clear liquid. Conclusion: sand and water can be separated by filtration. Evaporation is a process in which the liquid changes into a gas. In this method, the mixture is heated, the liquid part of the mixture evaporates, leaving the solid part behind. For example, the mixture of common salt and water can be separated by this process. In fact, the oldest method of obtaining salt is by evaporating seawater, which has dissolved salts in it, and the seawater is collected in shallow pits and it is allowed to stand for long days. The sun's heat actually evaporates the water, the salt is left behind, which is collected and purified for consumption. Aim to separate the mixture of salt and sand. Materials required with the mixture of salt and sand: filter paper, burner, 2 test tube holder, and water. The method is take the mixture of salt and sand in a test tube and add water to it and shake it well to make the mixture. Then the salt dissolves in the water, the sand does not dissolve in it. It gets separated if it can be used with a filter paper and the funnel as a linear test tube, as we have done in the earlier case. Now only the salt solution remains in the first test tube. Now we can heat the salt water till the water completely changes into paper, leaving behind the salt. Observation: salt can be left behind in the test tube. Conclusion: two processes, filtration as well as evaporation, can be used together to separate the mixture of salt and water. Thus, sometimes more than one method can be used to separate the components of a mixture. Next is condensation. The process in which a gas changes into liquid is condensation. It is the opposite of evaporation. In nature, the water vapor in air condenses to form a liquid form that is called a dew. Condensation takes place only when the water vapor hits a cold surface. The aim to separate both water and salt from seawater. Materials required are salt water, kettle, metal plate, pair of tongs, container, a burner. First, we will take the salt water in a kettle and heat it over the burner. After some time, the steam comes out of the spout of the kettle. Next, hold the metal plate using the tongs above the spout. The steam condenses and changes into water droplets on touching the plate. That's a cold surface. Then we'll collect this condensed water, falling drops into the container, and heat it until the water has boiled off. Observation: the salt will be left behind in a kettle and the water is collected in the container. Conclusion: water and salt could be separated from salt water by the process of evaporation and condensation using together. Next is solution and solubility. When some salt is added to water and stirred, the salt actually dissolves and it disappears. This is the salt which has dissolved, and dissolving is a change where the substances mix completely in the liquid they have been added to. Not all substances can dissolve in water, however. Only some substances such as salt and sugar dissolve in water and are known as soluble substances. Substances such as chalk and sand actually do not dissolve in water and are known as insoluble substances. The substances that dissolve is called solute. The substances in which the solute dissolves is called a solvent. The total mixture is called a solution. So the solution is the solute and the solvent together. For example, sugar plus water will be sugar solution. If we keep adding sugars to spoonfuls to water and stir the solution each time, which will happen after some time, we will notice that some grains of the sugar at the bottom of the solution, that no more sugar can be dissolved, even if we try to stir it. We say that this solution has become saturated. So what is a saturated solution? It is that in which no more solute can be dissolved at that particular temperature. But if we heat the solution, what will happen? Can we dissolve that extra sugar that is present at the bottom? Yes, it can. It can increase the solubility of the solute by heating the solution. So solubility is the ability of a substance to get dissolved in a given liquid. Now the quantity of the substance that can dissolve in hot water is much more as compared to that of the cold water. There are certain factors that affect the rate of the solubility of a substance. Now stirring, we can observe this by taking 2 glasses of water and adding a spoonful of sugar to each glass. Then we keep one glass undisturbed and stir the other. Sugar will be found to be dissolving faster in the solution which is stirred than the one which is not stirred. Then it is solute in the powdered form. If we observe that taking the 2 glasses of water and adding a whole sugar cube in one glass and pouring and a crushed sugar cube in the other, sugar in the powdered form will dissolve faster than the sugar which is in a bigger size. Different substances can dissolve in different amounts of water while making a saturated solution. So that's all for this chapter. We are going to discuss the question answers in our class, online class. Thank you very much. Bye. Take care. Let's remember, write T for true and F for false. Number 1 is true. Number 2 is false. Number 3 is true. Number 4 is false. Number 5 is false. Number 6 is true.